Good evening, Americans and humans. This is your favorite alien on Saturday, February 12th, 2021. And today's commentary is Ukraine, a planetary disaster. And being from another planet, I can't see why all your governments of the planet and the people of the said governments are going to fight a world war over the Ukraine. The people of the Ukraine, well, they happen to be born in a piece of land that's been terrible, worse than Israel and the Holy Land. And all this started back for the current period with the Golden Horde. This is something that the American government and the American educators and the governments of Lithuania, Russia, Poland, Germany should know about this, because all these and the respective former states know about this, and they should tell their people, and the Russian especially. Putin, he just looks at it because, for the most part, Ukraine, in one way or another, has been part of Russia since the Golden Horde days. When a certain little city-state of Muscovy, under the so-called czars, started to gain territory to the east and demolished the Golden Horde, especially under Peter the Great, they established the current Russia Confederation, as they call it. Russia's not a confederation, it's a disaster to start with. But under the czars, that's what they called it, the Russian Confederation. Yeah, right. Russia. Oh, it's been a disaster ever since it started back in 1504, right? Yeah. Under the little town of Muscovy, city-state. Yeah. Well, during their conquest of the Golden Horde, they captured what was known as the right bank of Ukraine. The left bank of Ukraine was subsequently Golden Horde, Ottoman Empire, Polish Kingdom, Lithuanian Polish, what do they called it? Confederation? What was it that they called it back then? Oh, yeah. Like the Pennsylvania, you call yourself a Commonwealth. Well, that's what they called themselves. The Polish Lithuanian Commonwealth. Can you imagine the Lithuanians and the Poles? Well. And there was a lot of wars over this, especially the left bank of Ukraine. There was a war that lasted from 1654 to 67, in which treaty was never recognized by the Poles and subsequent Lithuanians until early in the 18th century, 1703, I believe. And then after the Polish conglomeration was split in 1795, Russia got most of Poland. It also got the Ukraine. And from 1795 to 1917, it was part of Russia. All of Ukraine was. 1917 to 21 became the Battle of the White and the Red Russians. Yeah, you know who the Red Russians were, right? Yeah, the Bolsheviks. And there was Bolsheviks in Kiev, too. And they succumbed. There was a brief portion where they were called the Ukraine Republic. But hey, In 1922, they became part of Ukraine SSR, part of the Soviet Union, the Republic of Ukraine, Socialist Republic. 1922 to 91. They were part of Russia just like they were from 1795 to 1917. Then Russia split and all 15 republics went to themselves. Ukraine was never in so much as an independent country, and therefore Ukraine is what it is today, a disaster. Because unlike people like Georgia, Lithuania, and Latvia, which had some independence from 1917 to 1940, Ukraine didn't have that, not even that brief of independence. And the Poles, up until they got, in 1795, eaten up and split by the Austria-Hungary, German, and Russians. Look what Poland did. It cost World Wars I and II. Yeah, right. Terrible, huh? Oh, boy. Especially World War II, Poland. Because Germany thought they should be part of them, and then we're also part of the Soviet Union. It was the League of Nations who made them a nation in 1918. Should they? Well, I don't know. Should Poland still be a nation? Really? Should Poland be in NATO? Should Ukraine be in NATO? They got more in common with the Eastern Europeans and Russia than they do with the Western Europeans and NATO. Their languages are similar to Russians. Most of the Ukrainians identify with Russians. And the Poles, well, they had the Germans and the Russians as masters. Oh, that must have been terrible. For centuries, not just World War II. 1795 to 1918, Poland was half Russian, half Prussian. The later German Empire. Yes. Do you understand what I mean, Americans? This is what Ukraine is. It's a disaster waiting to happen. Is Putin going to invade? Well, probably. What are you going to do about it? Are you going to do what happened to Poland in 1795? Or again in 1939? Where you went to their aid that cost millions of lives? And did you save Poland either time? No. Poland had to save itself. It's a national state nation by today's standards. But that's because they will it. The Ukrainians, on the other hand, they want everybody to save them. The Poles worked hard to save themselves. With people like Lech Walesa and Solidarity. The Ukrainians haven't had a taste of independence. They've been around since 1992, but they've been the puppets of the Western countries. Unlike Poland, who had to go at it, some of it, its own way. But here, Poland is the puppet of the Western countries like the United States. You're putting troops into Poland, which angers Mother Russia. That's like Russia putting the troops into the Mississippi River area and splitting the U.S. in two. Would that anger the United States? Oh, yeah. Or remember Russia putting troops into Cuba? Oh, that angered you guys enough. Almost cost World War III in 1962, didn't it? Really? As an alien from another planet, this is what thinking and what caused the disintegration of my home planet, my ancestral planet. 14 billion people died. For nothing. Are you Americans going to send your troops to die for the Ukrainians, who for the most part, since the 13th century, has been part of Russia or Poland or the Ottoman Empire? Golden Horde. And the Lithuanians. Lithuanians were powerful in those times too. Lithuania wasn't a little teeny thing. You got to remember, Lithuania's got history. Big time. But you don't teach your Americans that. You don't teach your American kids that. You don't teach your American public that. This is a part of Eastern Europe that's dangerous. It's been dangerous for centuries. And you're playing with fire here. You're trying to make the Ukraine's part of NATO. Ukraine has nothing in common with the Western world yet. It'll take decades for them to decide where they want to go. It took Poland decades to decide. And they're still not there yet. Lithuania, not there yet. Estonia, not there yet. Latvia, not there yet. Georgia, not there yet. All the 15 republics of the former Soviet Union. And Russia? All it wants is its territory back, but it doesn't have the backbone that its ancestor, the Soviet Union, or the Russian Tsar Empire, had. Putin doesn't understand that even if he takes 150,000 people to invade Ukraine, he's going to lose anyway. The Chinese are having trouble with the Tibetans, and they've been there since 1959. They're having trouble with their minorities. Russia's having trouble with Chechnya. And just figure how Ukraine's going to be to that. And then they want to add Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia back. Let alone Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, all the other stands. And Georgia? Really? Do you think that Georgians will want to be part of the Soviet Union again or part of Russia? I doubt it. They've had their taste of freedom. I don't think they want to go back to being Mother Russia. The Russians have a problem. But they're dragging not only themselves, but the rest of the world into a third world war for stupidity. Speaking as an alien from another planet, my ancestors went through this and they lost 14 billion people and their planet to this stupid way of looking at things and their stupidity as far as leaders. This is your favorite alien. Good day.